Volkswagen's T-Cross is a small super mini-based SUV that's always been trendy, quite sophisticated and very acceptably efficient. Here, the original version's been usefully updated with smarter looks, cutting-edge interior screens and updated drive assist tech. And if all that doesn't attract your attention, the brighter colours now on offer might. What's not to like? We're going to find out.
Not much has changed with this updated model beneath the bonnet, so as before, there are 3 T-Cross engine options. Most buyers will want Volkswagen's 1-litre TSI petrol engine. Entry-level variants get it in the 95 PS 5-speed manual form we're trying here, which manages up to 49.8 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 128 grams per kilometre of CO2. You can also have this little 3-cylinder unit in perkier 115 PS form, in which, guys, you get a 6-speed manual gearbox, and there's also the option of a 7-speed DSG Auto. The minority interest third choice is a 1.5-litre TSI Evo 4-cylinder petrol unit with 150 PS, which has to be had in DSG Auto form. Both the 1-litre variants that most will choose have impressive torque available from low revs. This 95 PS version delivering 175 Nm from just 2,000 RPM, and the 115 PS version serving up its 200 Nm across the same 2,000 to 3,500 RPM band. In other words, you won't have to row this little VW along with the gear lever through town. On the twisty stuff, this T-Cross isn't a particularly engaging thing to punt along. And of course, like its class contemporaries, this front-driven crossover isn't much use off a paved surface, but what we think you will like about it is the supple suspension. Volkswagen says it set out to make the T-Cross ride like a much larger car. And sure enough, it does, easily shrugging off speed humps and the pock-marked urban surfaces. And that's despite the lack of anything particularly advanced in terms of suspension design. Certainly, many competitor brands are going to want to know how a straightforward McPherson strut front and torsion beam rear setup can deliver damping this good. It handles higher speed undulations brilliantly too. One writer described the response as being akin to riding on jewelled bearings. Even larger wheel sizes don't seem to upset it very much. The T-Cross looks a bit smarter in this updated form, but it's still no trendsetter. From the side, the swept-back profile of the T-Roc is replaced here by a much squarer, nuggety 3-box shape, emphasised by 2 mid-level crease lines. You'll want to know about the update changes, which aren't that easy to spot unless you happen to be very familiar with the original version of this car. These squarical fog lamps of the earlier version are replaced by these smarter angled corner cutouts. Plus, these integrated LED headlamps are new too, equipped to the brand's piercing IQ Light LED matrix beams with the 2 upper trim levels. It's a little easier to tell that this is an updated T-Cross from the rear, or it will be if you've chosen one of the top 2 trim levels, because they get eye-catching X-shaped graphics for the new LED lighting now added into this full-width tailgate bar. In truth, it's all fairly conformist, but if that's not your cup of tea, there's now the opportunity to jazz up your T-Cross with an even brighter colour. One of the fresh shades the brand has introduced as part of this update is Rubber Ducky Yellow. The name introduced for our market only after the UK importers conducted a social media poll. OK, let's take a seat at the wheel. You sit quite commandingly by the standards of this class of car, and it's easy to find a comfortable driving position thanks to loads of wheel and seat adjustment. You're positioned 100mm higher than you would be in a Polo, and certainly higher than you would be in something comparable like a Seat Arona or a Ford Puma. You might also hope for a more interesting kind of cabin than the average small hatch would deliver. Well, that isn't on offer here, though with this updated model, Volkswagen has redesigned this 8-inch central infotainment screen, adding the option of a larger 9.2-inch monitor, and standardised this digital instrument display across the range. There's not quite as much cheap, scratchy plastic as there was in the original version of this model. Volkswagen has now added various softer upholstered fascia materials, but it could still feel considerably more appealing than it does. As before, you get plenty of storage space, including big door bins, under seat stowage and this deep forward compartment ahead of the gear stick. OK, let's take a seat in the rear. 6-foot adults who might normally grumble at the prospect of long-distance rear seat confinement in any Super Mini base model need have no worries about the prospect of riding in this one. We should also mention this car's party piece, its sliding rear bench, which is standard fit also across the range. The seat base slides over a range of 14 centimetres, though in its most forward position, legroom would be virtually non-existent unless the people in front were very short indeed. When it's pushed all the way back, though, there's vastly more legroom than you'd ever expect a car of this size would be able to provide. Finally, let's take a look at luggage space out the back. Now, the manual hatch raises easily enough, but there's no handle to pull it back down again. You might hope that the tall shape would free up considerably more boot capacity than you get in a Polo. Well, that depends upon the position of that sliding rear bench. If it's pushed all the way back, as it is here, there's 385 litres of space, just 34 litres more than a Polo, but easily enough for a buggy or a few large suitcases. If, however, you were to push the bench right forward, capacity would rise to 455 litres, which is 10 litres more than you'd get in Volkswagen's T-Roc SUV from the next class up. And in summary, well, you'd certainly have to be a committed follower of fashion to choose a Taigo or a T-Roc over one of these. It is at heart a very complete small SUV and very much a Volkswagen.